wanted to do before this spring ends? What are some of the key traits on people you're interested in? Any positions in pitching?
Yeah, a lot of this the last couple of days has been just kind of picking up where we left off. We had 99 days down, right? And there's been a lot of time for everybody around the industry to think and plan. And so we've been reconnecting really with the same objectives in mind. We talked about this before the lockout, that bullpen was going to be a priority for us, that we do want to still add position players to the group. The trade we made on December 1st kind of flipped our lineup balance a little bit to where we have an opening for a right-handed bat. But that said, in this period, especially with so much going on and so much flying, so many conversations, we want to be nimble enough to take advantage of all opportunities.
How about, you talk about a right-handed bat. Are you particular about the position that person would play, or is it kind of more open-minded?
Yeah, I think that the nice thing about the way our roster sits right now is that we are in a position to be able to accommodate a lot of different types of talented players. Obviously, there's some positions where we're pretty well set and pretty well spoken for, but for the most part, we can accommodate good talent if it makes sense for us.
The fact that you're looking for a right-handed bat, I mean, where does that leave you with Kyle Schwarber, who's obviously not right-handed? Is he not as much of a fit?
Not necessarily. I mean, we also, you look at the right side of our infield, and the guys that spent the lion's share of the time there that are here now are both right-handed hitters, and we can complement them. So, I don't want to limit, and we're not limiting our search to that. But clearly after the deal we made, with Hunter and Jackie, it does make that more of a fit.
Could you talk about getting Jackie back?
Yeah, that obviously any deal that you line up for baseball reasons first and foremost. But I think one thing that it helps to know Jackie, the caliber of person he is. I was only with him for a year and really came to appreciate him. And I think when you're looking at executing a trade under those circumstances, where for all intents and purposes you know that it is going to be a while before you really get to be in real contact with the player, having the trust that we have in him and how he handles himself, how he would understand the organization, understand coming back to the organization, that helps.
Can you talk about your starters, and do you feel a need to go out and get another starter?
There is never a point where you're not looking to add starting pitching in this game. I think all the more so with this compressed spring. But with what we were able to do before the lockout, we do like who we have. We think we have a lot of good options, and also that our depth in terms of who's coming up, who's ready or close to ready in AAA, that we're in a better position than we've been in. Now, we still need to improve. We need to set the bar really high. We know the bar is set really high around the industry, so we're always going to be looking to improve, whether it's outside acquisitions, whether it's to be in a better position through player development to have the reinforcements that you need. But we like all the guys that we have and the different options that they give us.
As far as you know, is everybody healthy?
We're still getting our arms around that. Our physicals are going on as we speak. So overall, we're happy with where the group is. Being away from your players for almost 100 days and having no contact, you can lie awake at night thinking of all the terrible things that might be happening. By and large, we're really encouraged by how the group has come in, speaks to them and the drive and how they care for their own careers when they're away from us. But until we have everybody in, everything done, that we could give a complete report then.
Can you talk about your bullpen and who's going to be the closer?
I think you guys talked to, have talked to, some of our folks in uniform about this in the last couple of days. And I know more often than not, it's not Alex's style to come out firing with that at the beginning of camp. The way I think it makes sense to look at this generally from a front office perspective is we know there's going to be a lot of outs to get over the course of the season. We need a lot of talent out there, good talent, different looks, different repertoires, and chiefly, can they get people out, and can they get people out in the way that they're going to be called upon to do it in today's game. with the situations they'll be put in, lineups they'll have to work around. And so having, having as many guys who can do that as possible, to me, that's number one. And then we can figure things out from there.
Obviously, this is the trade and free agent kind of crush, but how much of a priority are you putting on signing Nevers to an extension, and how that maybe affects some of the things that you are doing, right now?
Yeah, look, this right now, these last few days, we're just in a period where there's a lot of things happening at once. I mean, even just getting back in touch with our own players, that really became what like when the light turned green. First and foremost, I think the evening was about that, and it felt like it was about that for 30 teams. So that in itself would be a huge deal if we weren't also trying to make up for 3 months of lost off season. So that's really been our focus. But like I've said it before, nothing's changed with that. How we feel about him, he's a cornerstone player for us, and we hope he's here for a long time.
How do you look at where you're...
Hang on a second, let me get Pete first.
Given your division and the depth of the division, do you feel like this team needs some subtle improvements, or would you like to make a more major improvement?
I think, always, especially in the AL East, but really at any point in time, if you can, the more you can improve, the better. It just has to make sense in the context of what we're trying to do, which is be great every year. And so, I think when you start fixating on a certain type of improvement rather than just looking to improve, looking every way you can to get better, I think you'll serve yourself better if you're really pursuing everything and open to everything. Now, ultimately, you can only go through so many doors. You do have to make choices, but we shouldn't. I think we're in an incredibly competitive division. I think it's the best division in sports, let alone baseball. So we know where the bar is. We were fortunate, proud to be the last team standing from it last year, but everybody's going to be loading up. We know that. We know how it works in the AL East, and we just got to make sure we can be in that mix.
Do you think this team, as it stands now, can win the division?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we sit and don't try to keep improving it.
And how would you describe like the level of intensity the last few days? Is that as crazy as any stretch in your career? Is it more than a trade deadline, more than winter meetings, stuff like that?
It's hard to compare because it's so unique. I have never experienced exactly what the last, I don't even know how many days it's been. Every day feels like a week right now, but I haven't experienced something quite like this. And one of the things that's most interesting is usually this point in spring training is more relaxed. And you walk out here in the field, you guys have been here. Weather's good, the vibe is good, it feels like spring training. But behind the scenes, there's so many different things happening. Some of them are moving along faster than others. It is as busy as any time I've ever experienced in my career.
When you look at where you are payroll-wise relative to the new threshold, the fact that there are 200-something free agents out there, and you've got significant money coming off the books after this season, does all of that present to you an opportunity to maybe go big and do something, fairly significant in the next few weeks?
Yeah, it opens more options for us, maybe than we've been, working with the last couple years. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, I don't think we should worry about the size or the Q factor, the splashiness of a move. We should be trying to use all our resources to be as great as we can every year. Whatever that means. But certainly, especially looking out ahead, the more flexibility you have, the more options you can consider. That's part of why that flexibility is important, because it does give you access to the whole menu.
And with the shorter spring and the need for pitchers to try to ramp up quickly and all of that, does that make it more likely that Houck and somebody like Houck might stay and be a bridge guy rather than compete in the rotation, because you're going to need volume in April because guys don't have as much time to stretch out?
Yeah, I think with anybody that we look at as being able to give us bulk innings, in any capacity, I think the important thing here is not to be sped up by the short spring. It is what it is. Opening day is April 7th, so this is a marathon still, and we just need to make sure we get everybody to the starting gate in as good a position as we can, being mindful that it is a long season. So we're not going to force anything, but we also, want the guys who are capable of giving us length to do it.
How important is this agreement and the fact that we're playing baseball this year for not just the fans and the players of the Boston Red Sox, but players and fans across Major League Baseball?
It is, and I think for anybody who loves this game, such a relief, really, that baseball's back. That aspect of it, I think I'm speaking for everybody who follows the Red Sox, loves the Red Sox. It was tough emotionally, just not knowing, and the prospect of not, having a full season. It's wonderful that we get to do this, and I've had various occasions to say this over the past couple of years, just realizing how fortunate we are to do what we do, and this is yet another reminder, and we're all so fired up. Not just that we get to play, but that we get to play 162.
And with the payroll and having not handed out a big contract yet in your tenure, do you feel more inclined to do that now with the CBT where it is and having stayed under for 2 years in a row?
Yeah, without, obviously, especially at a time like this, but even generally, we generally don't talk about the specific number, but I would just say again, for me, I don't think we should start chasing moves based on the size of some move in the abstract. We're blessed here with tremendous backing, great resources, both in terms of player payroll and in terms of building, a great organization. And our job is to use those resources to be as great as we can be and to give our fans a championship-worthy product every year. So we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our ownership, we owe it to our fans to look at every possibility that fits that and just choose what we think is the best path to having that feeling that we had in October last year, to putting us in position to have that annually.
And with JD and Nate and maybe Xander being gone next year, how much incentive does that give you to maybe be a little bit more aggressive?
Yeah, you could talk about payroll flexibility, future flexibility all we want. Sometimes that flexibility comes because, you've got some players who are really good players and key contributors whose, contracts may also be expiring. So that's something we have to be mindful of too. We do look at all that stuff. You don't want to get too ahead of yourself either, but it's certainly something that we're very aware of.
Do you want to see Garrett Whitlock in a particular role or a hybrid role, or how do you look at how you can best use him?
Yeah, to me, especially with Garrett, but I think with a lot of young pitchers, if we try to put somebody, cookie cutter style into some sort of abstract role, we do them a disservice. Garrett came up as a starter. When we took him in the Rule 5, we viewed him as a starting pitching prospect. His role ended up evolving into something very, very different over the course of the season to all of our benefit. But we still think he has the ability to do that. And when you have someone who has a chance to turn over a lineup, whether it's 1, 2, 3 more times, it's good to give them a chance to do that, but to do it in the right way at the right pace. So the way we're looking at it right now, especially given everything he's been through medically, workload-wise the last couple of years, we do want to give him a chance to pitch more innings for us, just to do it in the right way, do it responsibly, not to get too focused on what we call the role, but just to give him a chance to impact us as much as possible in a way that takes care of him, and by doing that, we're gonna take care of us too.
And if this were a normal camp, would you have had more of the younger prospects invited to big league camp like you did last year?
It's possible. The timing is so odd given that the minor leaguers have been rocking and rolling for a while now. But last year was also different because we didn't have a minor league camp at that time. The minor leaguers were all starting much later, so there were players who we wanted under our care. We prioritized a few guys to have them in here early, and that also is an unusual situation. So the answer is probably somewhere in between. It's nice that all these guys are here. I know you and a few guys have been here seeing them. It's been great. They generally speaking, they look really good. And we're gonna be able to see those guys in big league games over the course of the spring, backing up. Some of these guys will come over for cameos, and that's one of the fun parts of spring training that we didn't have last year that we're gonna have again.
You've talked for a while about wanting broaden the base of talent and get to a point where that, I guess it's never done. How good do you feel about where that is now?
I think we've made a lot of progress. I don't feel like, and maybe some of this is just how I think about things, but I don't feel like we are there to where we can say mission accomplished. I think the value of that pipeline, the value of that elite pipeline of talent, is that it opens up options for you to pretty much do anything you want, as long as you are producing good young players consistently, championship caliber players from your system. You can do so many more things with your major league roster. And we are in a much better position than we've been, but we still have work to do.
I know you said it's a marathon, not a sprint, but do you feel a sense of urgency to make a lot of moves quickly since there is a shortened spring training?
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, just because it is where we are in the calendar right now and we're less than a month from opening day, a lot of moves around the industry are going to happen quickly. The pace of moves, you can't control the market. The market kind of dictates how it moves. So from that aspect, the past few days for us as a front office have been as much of a sprint as anything. The important thing is not to translate that into what we're doing with the guys once they get into camp. We still need to make sure that they're prepared the right way.
Last year, as an organization, you encouraged players to get vaccinated. There were ramifications when they didn't, in terms of freedom and lifestyle stuff on the road. This year, the repercussions are more significant, particularly in Toronto. Will you take a more aggressive stance in trying to inform players who aren't, because of the real competitive disadvantage you may be at if some significant guys aren't?
Yeah, things are both our contact with our players and even getting our arms around the CBA, and of course everything with our players, rightfully so, is collectively bargained. So we're still getting our arms around all of the nuances of that. Should go without saying, anything that could keep our players off the field is going to concern us. We have been and continue to be staunch advocates of vaccination. Of course we have and will continue to do everything we can to encourage everybody to get vaccinated.
As far as you know, will everybody be here today?
I don't know off the top of my head. If not, it should be pretty darn close. We might have a few guys who are getting in a little later than that, but off the top of my head, I think we'll be near, if not at, full strength today.
Where's Paxton and his kind of recovery from Tommy John right now?
He's doing well. He's still a ways away, but he's on track. There was a carve out in the provisions of the lockout that allowed us to monitor rehabbing players, although not through direct conversations. So we were up to speed on at least what he was doing, if not how he was doing, and he's on track. This was something that, based on the timing, we're looking more second half of the year, but nothing's changed with that. Really happy with where he's at.
Is he playing catch yet or anything?
You know what? I actually couldn't tell you off the top of my head, and focused on so many other things. It's something I should have at my fingertips, but I don't.
How about Mata and Ward?
So they're both here. Again with Brian, again somebody that we could monitor remotely. Look, we have such a good medical staff. You'd love to have our players with them. Because of the way that this lockout worked for the guys on the 40-man, we couldn't. Thad, of course, we were able to. But we were able to monitor him remotely. Brian's been throwing. He's on track. Doing well. Just great to see him again, have him under our care. Thad also is doing well. He's throwing as well and looking good.
Any timetables for them being back in game action?
We can sort of look at vague timetables at this point. Should be sooner, than PAX, but nothing. We don't have a calendar mapped out just yet.
You have any thoughts on the Yankees trade yesterday?
It was interesting. Look, we were just talking about it. The AL East, things are going to happen. People are going to make moves. We can't get, we can have our own opinions on them. We can, think whatever we want. We can't get too distracted worrying about what everybody else is doing, or that's going to lead us to do things we shouldn't do. We got to stay focused on us and where we're going. I think that served us pretty well last year, and generally speaking, I think you get rewarded for focusing on what you can control.
Kind of along those same lines, you mentioned that you don't want to be out, chasing players, but given the new capital with the CBT and the fact that a lot of organizations didn't have a chance to talk to anybody over the last 99 days, does it surprise you that some of those marquee names haven't really fallen yet off the board when it comes to free agency?
It feels like it's been a long time since the lockout ended, but when you think about it, it's been, 4 days? So, really, I think there were a lot of assumptions out there that a lot of business was being done behind the scenes that would tee up a lot of dominoes to fall in the first hour or two. And I don't think that was the case around the game. It certainly wasn't the case here. So it's going to take some time for some of those things to flesh out. But because there's so much happening, like I said, it feels sometimes like more time has passed than it really has. And so, we have the time that we have. I think a lot is going to happen every day from here on out around the game, I would bet.
Is your sense of the free agent market that because the truncated spring training means more for pitchers and getting them ready, that pitchers are coming off the board? I mean, it might ordinarily happen anyway, given the importance of pitching and the relative scarcity of it, but are pitchers seemingly coming off the board quicker because teams want them in camp as quickly as possible, and then maybe the position players follow?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that could be the reason. I don't necessarily know I'd say it's the only reason, but I think it could be the reason. Obviously, there is more ramp up that I think is generally needed with pitchers, and we saw a lot of pitchers signed before the lockout too that I think kind of ate into the supply a little bit. So, there's as with anything in this period, I think there's not one reason for why anything is happening. You have, hundreds of players and their agents. You have 30 teams all trying to take care of business in a really short amount of time. So there's a lot of different factors in play.
When you look at second base, you obviously have Christian Arroyo and Kiki can play there too. But are there other people within the organization that you feel could get some major league innings in?
Yeah, that's you talked about it with the versatility that Kike brings, and that I think last year at this time we probably thought we would see a ton more of him at second base than we ended up seeing, and he was an elite center fielder for us. But I think that's a growing area of system depth for us. Up to and including AAA. Yomer Sanchez is in here, who won a Gold Glove not too long ago. Who brings a little bit of a different profile with ability to hit from the left side and elite defense. And obviously, as with anything right now, I don't know which direction this is going to go in the coming days and weeks. The roster is not necessarily complete. We think we have pretty good options there, but it is a spot where, because of that versatility you mentioned, we can do different things and get creative there if it makes sense.
You did pretty well in the Rule 5 last year. How do you feel about it not happening?
I think from a quality of life standpoint, front office wise, we're certainly not wondering, what to do with our spare time right now. So one less thing to worry about probably makes it easier for everybody. The circumstances were so unique, it probably made sense to not have it this year, where I think we were already in a position where it just wasn't going to play out the way that the Rule 5 draft usually does, with some of the upsides and also some of the costs of selecting a player, where this would have all happened so quickly that I'm not even sure it really would have reflected what the Rule 5 draft is supposed to be about. So I understand why it was decided to cancel it. We got a pretty good outcome last year with our Rule 5 pick. I don't know if we could reasonably expect to have duplicated that, especially picking 24th. So, I guess we'll never find out. Won't get a chance to try.
Given some of the tough decisions you had to make roster-wise for Rule 5 stuff, are you also happy that maybe some of the guys that you had to leave off aren't open to everybody, obviously?
Yeah, we can say, and we did say at the time, these are always calculated gambles. And even if you feel good about it, when you put your head on the pillow that night and you continue to feel good about the decision, you're always still worried about losing players. So the fact that that's not going to happen, from an organizational perspective, is a good thing. Like those two questions kind of point out, it's a double-edged sword. There's upside, downside, but I think at the end of the day, with everything else that has to happen, the timetable we're on, I think it was the right decision.
However,
Hang on one second.
About the Seiya Suzuki, is anything going on with him?
Well, with any specific player, I'm not going to get into too many details. But suffice it to say that we're trying to be in touch with the whole market. He's really talented.
however it plays out, do you feel like you need another outfielder?
We would we would like to add. No, we would like to add position players to the group. We do have flexibility, versatility, where it allows us to do different things with who that is. Doesn't necessarily have to be an outfielder, but I think we have opportunity there, and I think it's safe to say we're going to be out there looking to boost our outfield in some way. But because of the different options we have with guys in house, that could also come from adding somebody at a different position.
I mean, there was a time when you signed Kike that he's a second baseman.
Yeah.
Which didn't necessarily come true. I mean, is that what you're talking about? That you have the
Yeah, but I think the short answer is there's definitely opportunity out there, and it's a lane for us to make this team better. All right. It's good to see you guys, and we're not on Zoom.
I know. Thank goodness. I'm going to Zoom again.
I like it.
Out back.